Then the last presentation, the last speaker is Professor Shigeki Moro from Hanazono University. His title is Morogram, Background History and Purpose of a Tool for East Asian Text Analysis. Please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I would like to share my slide before my presentation. Maybe you can find the slide. No?
Can you share the screen?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
I see, that's right.
So thank you for coming this workshop. And I'm Shigeki Moro of Hanazono University. I think the reason why I'm making a presentation here today is because I helped Amano Sensei, Professor Amano, in the very early stages of her project. So I introduced some scholars of digital humanities and made small discussion, but I made just small contribution to this project. And I'm not an expert on Indian languages or Indian literatures. My research focuses mainly on East Asian Buddhist scriptures, especially philosophical ones, such as on epistemology and logic, written in classical Chinese. So I have also studied the digitization of East Asian Buddhist scriptures and the analysis of them using computer and the methodologies. In this sense, I think this presentation might be of some use to your research as well. Today, I would like to talk about the tool I have developed called Morogram. Morogram means Morogram named according to my name and Enneagram model. So I would like to talk about Morogram and the background behind its development and its methodologies. So at first, I would like to give a brief introduction of East Asian Buddhist studies. East Asian Buddhist studies mainly focuses on the philological reading of Buddhist scriptures, especially religious and philosophical ones, as well as historical documents. They include Chinese translation of Indian Buddhist scriptures, as well as texts written by East Asian Buddhist scholars. They were written in Chinese, classical Chinese, but it is a little bit different from ordinary Chinese. A part of the East Asian Buddhist scriptures were translated from Sanskrit or other Indian languages, so the Buddhist classical Chinese had been influenced by Indian languages. Some words are phonetic transcriptions of Sanskrit, and words are sometimes ordered like Indian language. For example, the Chinese word gu, yue in Japanese, which means therefore, is usually put at the beginning of a sentence like a conjunction. But in Buddhist Chinese, it is often written at the end of a sentence. It is said that this is due to the influence of ablative of Sanskrit. For example, Zhenggu is translated into translation of tattvatas in Sanskrit. So gu, yue, is ablative of tattva. And East Asian Buddhist texts had been written from the 1st or 2nd century to 19th centuries. So the Chinese language has undergone significant changes during this long period. Early Buddhist Chinese is quite different from later ones. In addition, Korean and Japanese Buddhists used their own languages. So the language of Pekche, ancient Korean kingdom, Pekche is ancient Korean kingdom, and the language of Shilla, ancient Japanese. And the Chinese texts were influenced by their own languages. For example, in Korean and Japanese, sentence ending particles such as desu, masu, da, and yo are used at the end of sentences, but there is no such thing in Chinese. It is known that in Chinese sentences written by the Pekche people, ji, shi in Japanese, ji in modern Chinese, this Chinese character is placed at the end of sentences. This word, this character usually means of or this, but it has no such meaning in the end of sentences in Pekche's Chinese writing. It seems to be used as a sentence ending particles. And in East Asian Buddhist studies, text analysis using statistical method began in the 1980s, and the development of databases of Chinese Buddhist scriptures in the 1990s has led to an active use of computers. Digital texts have progressed the research of these irregular usage of Chinese. In the study of East Asian Buddhism, we use not only printed, easier to read materials, but also manuscripts and wood prints. This one is wood prints and manuscripts. These materials have been held in temples, libraries, and museums. It is known that there remain still a lot of unknown Buddhist scriptures or materials in Japan. Some of them are fragment. The manuscript on the right, this one, have only one line fragment. We had found that this was a part of an important East Asian Yogacara Buddhist manuscript that had never been found before, And digital text database is a very important tool for identifying fragments like this. I think that one of the most notable research projects using natural language processing in East Asian Buddhist studies is text analysis using the N-gram model. The N-gram model is a language model that is widely used in the field of statistical natural language processing. An N-gram is a simple sequence of characters or words. N-gram means N means the numbers of the characters or words. In our analysis of East Asian text, we use n-grams of characters because a single character, a single Chinese character has the same function as a word. The frequency of n-grams is said to represent the characteristic of a language or text or the earth also. N-grams have been applied in various fields, including full text search engines. So it was Professor Miyuki Kondo and Miyuki Kondo was a scholar of Japanese classic literatures, and Professor Yasuhiro Kondo, who is a scholar of Japanese language and a pioneer of computer-based Japanese language research in Japan. They started analyzing East Asian literature using N-gram around 2000. Around 2002, Professor Kosei Ishii of Komaza University introduced this research method to Buddhist studies, East Asian Buddhist studies, and I have been developing the tools for it. Professor Ishii also proposed a method called NZSM, N-gram-based system for multiple document comparison and analysis, which compares the results of N-grams analysis of multiple documents. Professor Yasuhiro Kondo and I made some programs to do NGSM analysis. For example, the text Makahanya Haramita Shingyo Mohu Panluo Poro Mi Tuo Xinqing in Chinese, a Chinese translation of Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra or Heart Sutra in English, can be divided into 8 3-grams, 8 3-character strings, as shown in the slide. The only words that make sense as Chinese words are the ones with border lines. The 5th line from the top, Haramitsu, Poro Mi, is often used as another translation for paramita. In Chinese translation of Indian text, the last syllable or ta of paramita was often abbreviated. And the bottom line, Tashinkyo Tuo Shinjin, is meaningless as a translation of Sanskrit terms, but commonly used in East Asia as an abbreviation for this Heart Sutra. The rest of the 3-gram sequences has no meanings in Chinese. However, as we will see later, these seemingly meaningless connections of characters across word boundaries sometimes represent characteristic of the text. So we use N-gram models to discover such hidden characteristics. Professor Miyuki Kondo has made a significant contribution to the study of gender analysis in Japanese classical literature by using n-grams to discover linguistic expressions used only by women in Japanese waka poetry. Waka is a traditional Japanese poem. Uh, but I'm very sorry that she passed away in 2019. This is her monograph based on n-gram analysis. So I think that there are three main purposes for research or analysis using the n-gram model. First, statistical analysis to make a hypothesis for philological studies. It is a method for forming hypotheses when conducting a philological study or close reading. In recent years, the method of distant reading by Professor Franco Moretti has been known, and it is similar to that. And second, searching hidden characteristic of text. Professor Miyuki Kondo's researches, which I mentioned earlier, are in this category. A third, searching for hidden or silent quotations. Pre-modern scholars often did not mention their sources when they quoted from other documents. This is a method of investigating such quotations, comparing n-gram results of multiple documents comprehensively. It is not easy to find them by full-text search engine alone, so I'm working on extracting all common expressions from multiple Chinese texts. For an example of making hypotheses, I would like to share my n-gram analysis and comparison of text of Wonyo. Wonyo is one of the most famous scholars of ancient Korean Silla Buddhism. I analyzed all of the texts written by Wonyo or attributed to Wonyo using a 3-gram trigram and made and considered the frequencies of the 3 grams as a vector each text. These are the name of the chapters of the Wonyo's text, and this is trigrams of these texts. So these frequencies means the vector of these chapters. So, and I made a cluster analysis in order to make a rough comparison. So as a result, this is a cluster dendrogram. As a result, I found that Wonyo's text can be divided into 2 major clusters. Comparing with Natsuka Sensei's visualization, this is very simple visualization. And this made it possible to confirm that Kongo Zanmai Kyoron, exposition of the Vajra Samadhi Sutra, which has traditionally been suspected to be the major work of Wonyo, falls into the cluster of the right. This could mean the exposition of the Vajra Samadhi Sutra or Kongo Zanmai Kyoron is might be somewhat questionable as a major work of Wonyo. I think this result will provide a clue for close reading and philological comparative study of his Wonyo's text. And searching for hidden characteristic is a quite different or opposite approach of statistical methods. Professor Anthony Kenny pointed out in 1980s that casual expressions can reveal the characteristics of the person who wrote them. What would a stylistic fingerprint be? It would be a feature of an author's style, a combination perhaps of very humble features, such as the frequency of such as, no less unique to him or her than a bodily fingerprint is. Being a trivial or humble feature of style would be no objection to its use for identification purposes. So word or words and loops at the end of our fingers are not variable or striking parts of our bodily appearance. Professor Yasuhiro Kondo, as I mentioned before, has stated the same thing. Comprehensive research of a text will allow us to explore the structure and regularity of the text, which is usually unrecognizable to modern people. This will contribute to the study of literature by making up for our lack of introspection, one's sense towards classical languages. I believe that engrams can be powerful tool in this kind of analysis. This in Buddhist studies, Professor Kosei Ishii has made great achievement in the research of searching for hidden features using engram or NZSM. I would like to show you one or two examples. The examples in the slide are expressions that can be found only in the scriptures translated by Paramartha or Shindai in Japanese, and in translations of the scriptures of Sammittiya, whose translator is unknown. Sammittiya is one of the traditional schools in the Indian traditional Buddhism. And Paramartha, who came from India, is known as one of the great translators of Chinese Buddhism. It has been presumed that in recent years that Paramartha was also a monk of Sammittiya. It is noteworthy that both of these expressions do not contain Buddhist terms or keywords, but are trivial and humble feature. Moreover, they are not words, but expressions across words. I think the strength of Ngram's method is to find example like this. However, it takes some practice to do this kind of searching or analysis. Recently, Professor Ishii published a paper in Japanese describing the tips. So you can find the slide, last slide references. So finally, I would like to conclude my talk by quoting Professor Miyuki Kondo. She said that at the time of the publication of my articles in 2000 on the analysis of Japanese classical poems based on the Engram models, she heard some comments about this method, such as it is a dream method in which a computer can produce results instantly, or conversely, a computer cannot understand waka poems. Yeah. Or when dealing with the same data, the same discussion would be made. But however, the Ngram-based string comparison is a kind of ultimate reading method that thoroughly reads waka poems based on a large number of strings that the computer provides. I would like to mention that I realized again through supervising my graduate students that the new points of view brought by this method vary from one researcher to another depending on their awareness of the problem. So I believe that analysis using N-gram models, although analysis using N-gram models, although it is powerful, but needs to be combined with cross reading of the text. It would be better if a single researcher could do both computer computer analyzing and the cross reading. But Professor Ishii can do both. But I think it will be necessary to share the jobs or operations in various ways in the future, as Professor Ishii and I have done. I made a tool and Professor Ishii used to analyze the East Asian Buddhist text. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. And does anyone have comment or question? Yeah, Yuki, please.
Yeah, thank you for the very interesting presentation. I'm curious about the two different usages of gu, yuani. Is there any way, or can one grasp the two different usages of gu using the monogram, the therefore and the ablative usage?
Maybe your question is about this example.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So N-gram model, N-gram model. So our usage of N-gram model does not consider the word or sentence boundary. So we can't find the Sanskrit flavored Chinese usage. We can't find these kind of Sanskrit like Chinese usage based on the N-gram models.
I see. Okay, it's quite interesting because I'm working on a Tagalog language in which part of speech is not quite clear. So one cannot, in Tagalog, one cannot well distinguish nouns from verbs. But we propose a model according to which its part of speech tag is predicted given that context. So this might be. In this connection, I'm also curious about the classical Chinese in the natural language processing of classical Chinese. And thank you.
There are two direction to use the N-gram models. The one is the N-gram model without word or sentence boundaries, and the another is N-gram model including the information of sentence or word boundaries. So we we select or choose the method according to our studies or problem consciousness.
Okay, it's okay. Very interesting. If you have any relevant paper, please, could you send it to me or the two different approaches concerning the two different approaches of engrams. Yeah, thank you.
And Tyler, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for the talk.
Yeah.
So my question is about, I have not yet understood whether there is any looking at synonymous characters. So if one can only look at the literal character, Unicode character.
I'm sorry.
Yes?
What character? If someone.
If we're talking here about the Chinese characters.
Yeah.
So if one can only look at the exact literal character, then if one is looking for example, other occasions where this is used, so looking for quotations was one suggestion you mentioned. Does your program try to go beyond the exact match and to also find similar terms, or if it's limited to the exact match, then I was also going to ask, in my mind, this is also very useful for finding sort of strange combinations of characters. So if you are interested in improving the quality of digital texts, then sometimes finding the rare and strange combinations of characters can be useful. I was curious if you have experience with this, but also whether it goes beyond the exact match to also find similar meaning at all in any way.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so I think the statistical approach is including n-gram models. Statistical approach is good for rough comparing. So of course we can use the matching not exact matching, but if we do so, we have to proofreading of the text, and we develop the semantic database of Chinese characters, or we have to the tables of the similar Chinese characters, or we have to many jobs. We have to make many jobs to realize exact matching. So no, not exact matching. So I use the statistical or n-gram models using the exact matching. But so to make hypothesis to cross reading. So Yeah. I'm using the exist. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comment? If no questions, then now thank you very much, Professor Moro, again